Have you noticed how life can unfold much more beautifully when we just allow it to flow through us? Join us for this conversation about Gene Key 31 and the corresponding Sabian symbols. Welcome to the Free to Be Free portal. We're so happy that you're here with us. I'm your host, Julia Ananda, and I'm here with astrologer and Gene Keys guide, Margaret Miller. Margaret, this is a fascinating discussion. I'm excited for it.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, I am too. It's a powerful energy that we're moving through. So as usual, we're looking at the gene key that the sun is shining its light upon right now, and the Sabian symbols also that the sun will move through over the next several days. So So this gene key 31 has the shadow of arrogance, the gift of leadership, and the city of humility. And I really want to just begin with the idea that you put forth in your opening statement of, flowing through life, and how when we're trying to control life, when we're trying to control events and circumstances, how badly that fails most of the time, right? This is, there isn't any controlling of that. There's only the controlling of how we respond to the circumstances. And I also kind of want to talk about this idea of, you know, you create your own reality. That's, we hear that all of the time. And I love how, I was listening to Richard Rudd talk about this in this week's Pulse of Gene Key 31, how that's only partially true, right? It helps us. It's a helpful idea for us, but it's not entirely true. We don't actually control the events. We have no control over the events that happen in our life, but we do have a choice on how to respond to what life throws at us, right? And how we respond then influences how things continue to unfold. So we do have an input, right? And we are influencing it, and we're influencing it either negatively or positively, either out of fear or out of love. This is always the choice, right? Or am I going to respond fearfully, or am I going to respond lovingly? Right. And that's always the choice that we have. And the arrogance of, part of the arrogance of the shadow of arrogance is actually thinking that we can control anything, that we can control these circumstances. This is sort of a form of arrogance on our part, truly. And it has very, very negative consequences in the world. We can see that in lots of areas in the world. So I want to dive right into the Sabian symbols today, okay, and just look at how these Sabian symbols might weave in with the gene key of arrogance, leadership, and humility. So the first symbol here is Leo 3. We're in Leo, right? And so it's interesting, first of all, that, this is talking about leadership, because Leo is wants to be out in the forefront. It wants to shine its light. It wants to have its ideas, put out there in the world and received and responded to in a positive way, right? It wants the spotlight in that way, and for a very good reason, because it has this. Leo is ruled by the sun, right? And so it's the light of the sun wanting to shine out through this person's or through that energy. So So the first Leo 3 is a mature woman, her hair just bobbed. Okay, is looking in the mirror, or she's admiring herself, right? And and these Sabian symbols were brought through in the 1920s, and at that time and before that, in the epic before that, epic, that's not exactly the right word, um, were that was the short hair was not something that older women usually chose. They usually had long hairdos. So you might change that today to an older woman having, her hair in a wild style, or in long hair, or whatever it is, whatever the current, you know, fashion is. And but the idea of it is that she's expressing the her uniqueness and um her desire to be herself, her authentic self, and to move in the world even as an older person with youthful vigor, and to live her life fully, right? And so you can see, it can be the shadow of arrogance. I want to be something that I'm not. It could be that. Or it could also be, this is who I am. This is the energy that I carry, and I am going to demonstrate that just because I'm older doesn't mean I'm, less than, or I'm, whatever it is. So there's this energy that could go either way, sort of the positive and negative of that. It could be a shadow, or it could be a gift energy. And so it really also speaks to our, the cultural ideals that they change, and what we value as important can change over time, but it requires that some of us um, take action and demonstrate that. So then, Leo 4, a formally dressed elderly man stands near trophies from a hunt. And this is an interesting symbol because it it really does speak in a lot of ways to the arrogance, right? Because this is, he's formally dressed. He's dressed in a way that he would be approved of by his cronies, by his contemporaries, right? And the trophies are showing, I did this, I I went out and killed this animal, and that this is somehow the beating the drum of the the masculine energy, where we're not generally, that person didn't necessarily go out and kill that animal because they needed the meat for their family, right? Which was the original, you know, intention of the hunt. But they're doing it for that approval, and for that yeah, that feeling secure. And that's what the shadow of arrogance is about, is how can I feel more secure? How can I be more secure? I want the attention, seeking recognition, because I want to feel secure, and I want to feel, included. And then, but moving that to the gift of leadership, then, you know, is this ideal? Is this demonstration really showing someone a better way? right? So what is it that we are doing? What is it in our traditions that are worth uh, preserving? What is it that are the people that have come before us, the generations that have come before us? What is it that is worth preserving, and what needs to go? Right. So there's the energy of that as well. And do we have to prove ourselves to others? And sometimes, obviously when we're talking about moving into leadership, there is that element of having to prove ourselves, right? Having to, the proof is in the pudding kind of a thing. So then the next symbol, uh, Leo 5, is rock formations tower over a deep canyon. Sorry, I couldn't see it. Um, so this is a beautiful symbol about humility, really, I think, because these rock formations towering over a deep canyon, both the rock formations and the deep canyon have formed over geologic time, right? The lifespan that is way, way beyond our human, not only our human lifespan, but really beyond our imagination, right? Beyond what we can really comprehend, and how these things change over that long period of time, and what infinitesimally small little specks we are on the timeline in comparison to that, right? And so, but it also then is speaking to this energy of you know becoming timeless. And how do we leave behind something that is greater than us, right? So the landscape changes and leaves behind these impressive, the Grand Canyon, all of these impressive features, land features that are, awesome, that create awe. And what is it that we can do and be in our lives that will leave a timeless mark, right? And this is it's in the shadow of arrogance. It's sort of, I want the attention so that I can feel secure. But when we come into leadership, it's more about, how can I be of service? How can I be of the greatest service? And maybe in the process, leave behind something that's valuable, that's of use to the future generations, that they won't just want to scrap completely because it's, full of fear. And this is how these things, if it's lasting, it's because it rings true, because it has a universal truth in it. So on to Leo 6. A conservative, old-fashioned lady is confronted by an up-to-date girl, or a young trendsetter. Okay. And so this kind of is the same, it has the same energy. It's like there is this ever-changing, like, pageant of fashions, both in our, in what we wear, but how we show up, and what's acceptable and what's not. And also, our moral standards, like, from slavery to, emancipation, to equal rights, to all of these different things. Like, there was, in the social norm, there's been very, very different ideas of what's acceptable and what's not. And that is ever changing. right? And so this also speaks to that confrontation. The older woman has a lot of wisdom and potentially and a lot of life experience that the young girl doesn't have, and is not necessarily looking at that young girl wishing that she, in her own heart that she was that young girl necessarily, although we play that out in society very, very much. And but it's not necessarily true. It's more like, oh, youngster, you have a long way to go, and you're going to experience all the joys and all the sorrows, and go ahead and express yourself in whatever way is feels true to your heart, because that's what I wish I would have done, or that's what I'm finding out now, right? That kind of an idea. That's what I get from that symbol. And so then Leo 7, the constellations of stars shine brilliantly in the night sky. And so I love this symbol as well, of course, because it, deals with the constellations, and being an astrologer, I love this symbol. But it's talking about the power of our basic values, and the symbology, right? The common humanity that is expressed in all of our archetypes. Okay, and this, can really relate to the leadership and humility, because leadership, a true leader is someone who holds as best they can to an ideal, to something that is important to them, and they're following that, and they're demonstrating that as best they can. But they're human, and they make mistakes, and they recognize that they're going to stumble and fall, and not everybody's going to love them, and that's okay, and that they just continue to flow with what life is bringing them, while adhering to that ideal, and not being afraid of being vulnerable, not being afraid, because that vulnerability becomes their strength. Hey, I'm human too. I make mistakes, but I'm willing to get down and dirty and do the work that's required for this ideal to become manifest, right? And so those archetypes in this are the heavens reflecting back to us. We put the archetypes there, right? We made the archetypes so that we could feel some kind of order or structure in this chaotic, we look at the night sky and it's this chaotic universe. But when we can see messages or symbology from it, then we feel that ability to be guided. But and I think it was Richard Rudd that, no, I think maybe I'm thinking of something in the Sabian symbol, from Mark Edmund Jones, that talks about, what if the stars, what if the heavens are also reflecting that to us? What if they are sending us that those messages? What if they are there to be received? And I just thought it was a beautiful idea. What if the universe is conspiring with us to create these ideals that we can then emulate? So I just thought that was a beautiful symbol as well. Then the last one I want to talk about here is Leo 8, and it is an activist spreading his revolutionary ideals. Okay, so again, we have this, someone is really passionate about an ideal, and moving forward with that. And the thing about revolutionary ideals is that a lot of times we try to it in a revolution or in you know activism, we try to eliminate the old completely, and we don't necessarily speak a language that that we're speaking in a new language really from the old order, and they can't hear us, and so it requires this almost force for that change to happen. And the ideal never gets accomplished because they did not preserve the parts of the old that were valuable. And instead, and I know this does come from uh, listening to Richard Rudd's talk about the 31st gene key, that it's about grafting the new shoot, the new ideal onto the old rootstock, and the old solid, the parts of it that are eternal, the parts of it that are unchanging, like finding the universal truths that then we can bring these new ideas forward in a way that's going to work. So those are um, the Sabian symbols associated with this.
That last one, it's sort of like what we're doing with making YouTube videos in a sense, because you're taking all of this truth that people used to gather in person in sacred ceremony to share and use as wisdom to help the tribe. And it was a very communal thing. And now we are reaching vastly past our own community, to the entire world with using the new technology, grafting on these new technologies to reach further and gather people in from all corners of the world.
Yeah, that I love that. And it's also, it you can see the shadow of arrogance in it when we, when in social media, when we're just putting our face on there and I did this or I did that, or when it's all about, and this is arrogance, me, it's all about what I did or didn't do, or look at me, or all of that. When and then moving, I like this ideal, and hopefully we can live up to that as the best that we can, is that when we come into the gift of leadership, the question changes, right? I think I mentioned that the question changes. We move from that, how can I be secure? How can I feel secure? How can I be recognized, to how can I be of service? What can I offer to the world, to the community that might be valuable? Right. And have that be the question. And with that as the question, then life starts flowing to you the exact ways, the technology, whatever it is, so that we can reach more people and we can do this, from a remote location, we can do this, so to speak, and and we can reach more. And then coming into that, the city of humility, this is again, all acidic states are about when the self, the small self disappears, right? And so it really is about egolessness, where leadership requires us to have this idea of self-empowerment and self-improvement and reaching towards those ideals, and but also remembering our humility and remembering our humanity, and knowing that we are fallible, and knowing that you know things are going to happen, and that we may fall on our butts, and we may have to pick ourselves back up. And then that humility then is egolessness. It's where that ego or that self, the smaller self, disappears. And then we're still a part of humanity. We're still flowing with humanity, but we are all of it. We're not necessarily, um, we're certainly not striving for any ideal. All of the striving is gone. We are just receiving life and it's flowing through us. And it is um, a bowing to life, a bowing to whatever life brings us, and a radical surrender to our our purpose or our dharma, right? And that is, um, to me, it's this energy of it is that energy of surrendering to the purpose that life has unfolded for us. Like not thinking that we know what that purpose is. Like there's still a shadow of arrogance in thinking that we really know what our purpose in this life is.
I'm so interested in the balance of, or maybe it's not a balance, but it's a weaving of this surrender and allowing life to flow through and allowing ourselves to just respond the best we can, and knowing that when we're here to serve and that's our goal to serve, we are taking action steps. We are thinking through things. We are putting effort forth. So it's not surrender where we're just sitting around. We are purposefully acting in the world in combination with surrender.
Yes, yeah, I love that you brought that up because that is, I mean, surrender is welcoming whatever happens. It's not I give up. It's not the same. The city of surrender is not I give up, right? It's I give over. It's it's I give over to the divine force flowing through my life. And I will take whatever action is required from that place, right? And so that it's a really interesting concept, and I highly recommend people to go to the Gene Keys Pulse and to listen to Richard Rudd's um, beautiful transmission on this 31st gene key, because he uses an example that's quite, it's quite potent but quite controversial in there, of someone, in that acidic state might take on a role that seems uh, negative, that seems like a negative thing. And the story that comes to my mind, it's a different story that I want to kind of like play off of what Richard Rudd was talking about there. And I don't know where I heard this story from. So if anybody recognizes it, please put it in the comments so that I can, you know, credit the right person. But because it was the book that I read, and this woman is describing her, I think it was her mother, and was a very, very difficult human being, like very, very difficult to be with, always very negative and very critical and hurtful throughout this woman's life. And her daughter, the woman's daughter, also experienced her grandmother very much in that same way. And they're there at her deathbed, and they have a moment right before the mother passes away, where they see this incredible love and light shining through this woman's eyes, this woman that had been so hurtful and so hateful to them through, their life experience, shining this incredible light. And the woman who was, you know, very, very much on the spiritual path, recognized it and realized in that moment that her mother had agreed to play that role, to be not, to be hated, to be, really sort of despised, and to be seen as this awful human being so that the woman and her daughter could receive the learning and the teaching that they needed, that they had agreed to come into this life to express. And so that's humility, right? That's humility. It may not have been humility on the human level. It may have been just acting it out, right? They didn't even know that they had made that agreement. They just played the part, right? And so I just thought that was a beautiful story, that speaks to that speaks to that humility or the potential of that, right?
That is a very powerful story. It hits me right here. Yeah. I think one of my teachers said that there's always another human on the other side of the accident that happens, or there's another human on the other that might be thinking you're the mean one, or you're the hurtful one. I mean, we are here interacting with each other in sometimes beautiful ways and sometimes very, very painful ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Margaret, I think that one of the things that really stuck with me in what you were saying today was, what if the universe is conspiring with us? With us.
Yeah.
I love that so
I
much.
In fact, that's one of the things that I try to remember on a daily basis, is that all of these things in my life are happening for me. They're not happening to me. And so how can I best utilize what's been put in front of me, right? And what if it's just these clues towards this greater purpose?
Oh, I love that too. The clues toward the greater purpose. Yeah, absolutely. And if the universe is working for us or conspiring with us, that's what we're trying to offer with these energy updates is for this time period, that this gene key and these Sabian symbols cover, right? What is happening for us and what can we work with to work with the highest aspects of the energies of these time periods?
Right, right. So during this Leo season, let the light of the sun shine through you in its most beautiful and integrous possible way.
Woo! Love it. Love it. Oh, thank you, Margaret, for this awesome, awesome, poignant, and uplifting energy insight.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much, Julia.
All right. And to our audience, please subscribe. Please like the video if it helped you, and tell us what's going on in your life where you can use these wonderful energies of Leo right now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.